Welcome and thank you. My name is Bill Bland. If you're watching this, I probably sent you a letter talking about your foreclosure situation, your notice of default. A lot of times people get involved in this situation and it is a bigger deal to them than it really needs to be. I'm not saying that there's not a time frame to work within and that it's not serious. I'm just saying I've run into people, I've purchased a lot of homes from people that had a notice of default. I've helped people sell their home and I've actually helped people keep their properties. But in my first contact with a lot of the people that I've met, I've had people who said this was worse for them than going through cancer. I had another person who was talking about suicide with me on the telephone. Let me explain. This is just a financial situation. It is not something to overreact about. A lot of people are going to be sending you letters, postcards, things like that that are designed to hype up your sense of insecurity and your panic, and just to be able to take advantage of you in your situation. I want to tell you, I've been in foreclosure myself. I have lost properties in foreclosure in that big real estate downturn that happened. I was holding 10 properties at the time. Some I sold, some I had to lose. Okay, it happens. And I've helped a lot of other people. But what is really scary is when you don't know what's going on. You don't know what's happening next. You don't know how bad this is going to be or how it's going to affect you. So my goal is always to leave everybody better than when I found them. Whether that means we do business together or we don't do business together, that's okay. If I can be a resource to help you, then that's fine also. You know, that's my mission statement. We're going to talk a little bit about the process. First, over here, and I'm going to do some close-ups on this so you'll be able to see it because I'm not sure how well this lighting does this. First thing is when we can't make our payments for a while, generally it's about 3 months or so, the bank gets nervous. And the bank files what's called an NOD, or a notice of default. It's filed against you, and it is filed in the system with the public records. It means it's the start of a foreclosure process. It is how they get your attention to say, hey, please pay this, because truthfully, I'm going to tell you a little bit about motivations of banks. They don't want your property back. 99.9% of the time, they do not want your property back. It costs them money. And it also affects how they lend money. But that is a notice of default. So the first 3 months or so it happens. Then this is when you get your letter from the bank. It's a notice of default, and it's very formal. Now, sometimes they're misleading the way they explain it to you. I had a lady one time. She called me and she said, Bill, I'm in foreclosure. I'm panicking. I want to sell my house. Come talk to me. So I drove over, spoke with her. She was in Mission Viejo, Rancho Santa Margarita area. And in her letter, I think she had a first and a second, and the second was doing the foreclosure on her. The letter demanded $66,000 right then to cure the notice of default. That's what she thought it meant anyway, and she didn't have $66,000 laying around. So she thought that she was going to lose the house or she was going to have to sell it. And if I was a dishonest guy, I could have taken advantage of her and let her believe that and made a deal. But instead what I did is I said, look, your situation is they don't want $66,000. I mean, they take it if you had it, but what they want is a reinstatement. This right here, this whole period is what's called the reinstatement period. Okay, and I'll break it down and show you. That means you've got to pay back the amount you're behind, so the 3 payments or 4 payments or whatever it is, plus late fees, plus if you have any outstanding insurance or taxes, those have to be paid, and all the legal fees that go along with them having the notice filed against you. But it is redeemable. You can get your house back from them and reinstate the loan. So let me figure out here. So you have your notice of default, and that's like 3 or 4 months have gone by. Then you get that, that's where the X is. Then you have what's called a 90-day period, which is really, ideally, sometime in that 90-day, you have to make your decisions of what you're going to do. Your decisions are, you're going to keep the property somehow, whether you're refinancing the house with hard money lenders perhaps, whether you're borrowing the money or you've saved up the money, you have it in retirement or somewhere else, and you're going to bring it current. Or what you might be thinking about doing is, maybe this is a bigger headache, or maybe I have no equity in the house. It's really not worth me having this house because I lost a job, or I'm ill, or my spouse has passed, or whatever the problem is, or I need to, be relocated because there was no work here and you've got a job opportunity somewhere else. Now that's different ways of selling the property. That's selling it to an investor like myself possibly, or listing the house with someone, again, like myself, who can help you market the property and sell it quickly to a retail buyer, somebody who's going to pay hopefully more money for it. But you have to decide, do you want to keep it? Do you want to sell it? Or are you going to try to just give it back to the bank? Are you going to do what's called a deed in lieu of foreclosure? Those were very popular a few years ago. They're not so popular now, and the banks aren't taking them back the same way as they were because it's not the same type of environment. But you have to make those decisions. Here's what happens here is you have a notice of trustee sale. That NTS, or notice of trustee sale, that's when the real time crunch starts. When that gets filed, they have a minimum, they can go longer, but they can't go shorter, 21 days before they sell your property on the courthouse steps. And it's an auction. People show up with cashier's checks and they bid on the various properties. That's what happens in 21 days approximately. You have the right to redeem your house and bring it current from here all the way to this final 5 days. When it's 5 days before the auction, the bank, they have the prerogative of saying, no, we're not going to take your payments unless you have the whole balance to pay off your loan. But 97% of the time, they will take your reinstatement figures, the reinstatement payment to reinstate that loan. 97%. 3% of the time, they may say, forget it, we're not going to let you do it. But most of them will let you do it right up to this last little X here, which is the notice of trustee sale. Okay, at that point, when it happens, you no longer own the property. You might still be in the property, but you don't own it. And you have to get out of it. Or you may suffer an eviction on your credit in addition to all the other problems. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple of things. Now that you have a little bit of an understanding of your timeline and where you are in it, figure your notice of default time forward, and that gives you 90 days and then another 21 days to get this thing taken care of or make whatever decisions you're going to make. If you decide to keep it, you got to figure out how you're going to do it. One is something called a forbearance agreement, and that's where you get the lender to agree to take all that payments you're behind on and all the lawyer's fees and all that and put it at the end of your loan and let you start making regular payments. Lenders will do that sometimes. They don't always do it. It's up to them if they want to do it or not. But it's how you talk to them. It's how you negotiate. Sometimes they won't budge no matter how you talk. Here's what you'd want to decide if you want that or not. Can you prove to the lender that the problem that caused you to have a default was taken care of? You might say, well, I had lost a job and my spouse left me, and so I had one income and then I had no income and I got messed up. Well, now I have a roommate and I got another job that pays as much or better, and I can easily make those monthly payments from now forward. Whatever the situation is, you have to make them feel comfortable and safe that you are the one to trust to be able to move forward and keep you in that house. Okay, so that's something that you can do. If the way you want to do this is you're going to call your lender either way, and you're going to ask them for reinstatement figures. That's what you do. You say, hi, this is Bill Bland. I'm calling. I have a Countrywide, although Countrywide doesn't exist anymore. I have a B of A mortgage with you, and I'm in notice of default. I'm in foreclosure. They'll put you with a special, division of that lender that will deal with you. Say, I need reinstatement figures good till the 15th of whatever that month is. And then they'll say, sometimes they'll give them to you on the phone. Sometimes they'll mail them to you. Sometimes they'll take a day or two to get them to you. And if they take longer than 2 days to get those reinstatement figures to you, then you contact them back and you use the words, hey, I don't think you're dealing in good faith. Those are legal words, believe it or not. Those are legal words. And you say, hey, if you're not dealing with me in good faith, then there could be problems for you. There could be problems for your licensing, for all kinds of other things. And they could be possibly eligible for disciplinary action. So those words are important. And if you have to know the right words to use to the right people to get what you want, especially when you're dealing with this kind of stuff. Okay? Now let's just say you don't sell the property to anybody, whether it be traditionally or to an investor, and you aren't able to bring it current. Let's say they've taken your house. They've sold it on this day here, and you now are no longer a homeowner. You have a foreclosure on your record. Let's talk about life after foreclosure. Okay? It's a pain, but it is not a death sentence. It is not horrible. Here's what it is. A little known fact is that even after you have a foreclosure on your record, you can qualify to buy a house, traditionally to go to a bank and get a new loan in 3 years. So you got 36 months of a timeout. You're not allowed to play that game, but you got to make sure the rest of your credit is perfect from that point forward. You're paying everything on time. You're taking care of it. But 36 months later, you can get back into the game and buy another house as long as you meet all the criteria. But the foreclosure will only be held against you for that period of time. Let me tell you the biggest mistakes people make when they have a foreclosure and they listen to somebody who comes and talks to them and says, I can stop your foreclosure. You know how they want to stop it most of the time? They want to file a bankruptcy. Do not do that, because now you've compounded the fact that you're going to inevitably have a foreclosure with a bankruptcy. And I've seen people who file the bankruptcy in the wife's name, and that forestalls the foreclosure for how much? 30 days. It only slows it down for 30 days. But how long does a bankruptcy stay on your record? 10 years. Okay? Then they wait for that next 30 days and they file it with a husband. So now both spouses have bankruptcies to have bought them time, but inevitably what generally happens 97% of the time is they lose the property and they are far worse off because now they've got a bankruptcy and they've got two bankruptcies, one on each spouse, and a foreclosure on their record. You don't want to compound your problem. You want to be able to have the softest landing possible, which means if you can't keep it for whatever reason, you probably should shed the property in some way, shape, or form so that you can decide to move when you want to move, not when a marshal comes and throws you out of the house and gives you 15 minutes to get all your belongings, or has a lock changed behind you and you're embarrassed in front of your neighbors and your kids. It's a humiliating, traumatizing event. You don't want that for anybody. And I don't want that for that. Now, we talked about why banks don't want to take the house back. Banks don't want to take the house back, but they are more than willing to do it if you leave them no alternative. Is that banks make their money through something called fractioning, which means for every dollar they have on deposit, they're allowed to lend 8. Okay? So the only problem from that, so if they have a dollar, or they have $100,000 on deposit, they can lend $800,000 and get interest back on that $800,000. But if they take back a piece of property in foreclosure, that becomes a non-performing asset. That's what it's called, a non-performing asset. And now they have to keep dollar for dollar in the reserves for that. So if it was a $500,000 house, that's $500,000 that they have to keep backed up, and they can't fraction it. So that $500,000 stops them from fractioning 8 times $500,000. 8 times 5 is what, 40? So $4 million. Something like that. So that stops them from getting interest on $4 million because they have. So they don't have any interest in trying to make this harder for you as far as trying to keep the house, generally speaking. And you can sell the property even if it has a notice, it has a due on sale clause. You can sell the property, you can deed the property to somebody who's an investor or somebody else and leave your financing in place. And we can show you how that actually can work to help rebuild your credit for a period of time. And anyway, there's a lot more to it. I'm Bill Bland. I just wanted you to have an idea of some of the ways to help alleviate the problem. I'm a resource. I hope to be able to help people. If I help you, whether we do business or not, if I sell your house or I buy your house or I just help you and give you advice, then hopefully down the road sometime and you want to do business, you're going to think of me fondly and you're going to say, you know, that guy Bill Bland, he was not a bad guy. He helped me with this. We're going to use him when we buy a house, or we're going to recommend him to my friends or family or whatever. And that's just part of how I do business. I do 90% of my business on referral, and by making it a service and a ministry to those people who need the help, that's how I've grown, and that's what I've done. In any case, my telephone number should be down here on the bottom. It should be on the letter also if you want to call or ask me anything. Good luck no matter what you decide. And remember, it's only a financial situation. It is not life or death. Don't make it worse than it is. Don't paint yourself into making it a really horrible, bad thing. There is life after foreclosure. Truthfully, I can show you how to have a foreclosure, have a bankruptcy, and how to buy a house the next day. But anyway, those are things that I teach in seminars and stuff down the road. All right, thank you so much. I hope all things go well for you, and I hope to hear from you down the road. Thank you so much. Also, before I go, I want to tell you that you can go to my website, which I think I put in the letter. It's billblandhomes.com, and you can look up anything else you might want. There's some other resources on there also that might be of benefit to you. Anyway, thank you so much. Keep your head up, and good luck.